Gold. It's one of the oldest and most coveted metals on Earth, a symbol of wealth, power, and timeless style. But walk into any jewelry store, and you'll quickly notice not all gold is the same. Some rings gleam in rich, buttery yellow, others shine with a silvery white brilliance. But what actually makes white gold different from yellow gold? Is it just the color, or is there more behind the scenes? And more importantly, how are these two kinds of gold made inside a modern refinery or jewelry factory? Today, we're diving deep into the molten heart of gold manufacturing to uncover the surprising differences and the fascinating factory processes that transform raw metal into the jewelry we wear every day. Let's break it down. White gold and yellow gold may come from the same base metal gold, but they're not made the same way. Pure gold, or 24-karat gold, is naturally a bright yellow color and incredibly soft. That's right, soft enough to scratch, bend, or even dent with your fingernail. That's why pure gold isn't used much in jewelry. To make it practical and wearable, gold is almost always alloyed, meaning it's mixed with other metals. Yellow gold keeps the traditional warm gold color by mixing it with metals like copper and silver. White gold, on the other hand, is mixed with whiter silvery metals like nickel, palladium, or platinum. So the difference? It comes down to coloring metals used surface treatments. We'll get to that later. And sometimes even the feel and weight of the final product. Both yellow and white gold can come in 14K, 18K, or other purities that just tells you how much actual gold is in the mix. So what happens inside the factory to turn these elements into the jewelry you see on display? Let's head to the gold refinery. Everything starts with refining. Whether it's recycled gold scrap or newly mined material, it all goes through a purification process. Inside a large refinery, the gold is first melted down in furnaces that hit temperatures above 1064 degrees Celsius. That's the melting point of gold. Impurities like lead, zinc, or old solder rise to the surface and are skimmed off as slag. To get even purer, gold can go through a chemical process called aqua regia refining, which uses powerful acids to dissolve and then reprecipitate the gold in its purest form, 99.99% pure. At this point, the metal is a soft, brilliant yellow, and it's ready to become either white or yellow gold. But not before some serious alloying. Now comes the most important step, creating the gold alloy. Depending on the final product, technicians measure exact amounts of gold, silver, copper, zinc, nickel, or palladium using precision scales. Here's what a typical 18-karat yellow gold mix might look like. 75% pure gold, 12.5% copper, 12.5% silver. And for 18-karat white gold, it could be 75% pure gold, 10% palladium, 15% nickel or silver. These metals don't just change the color, they also affect how the metal behaves. Nickel, for example, makes white gold harder and more durable, but it can trigger skin allergies in some people. That's why luxury brands often use palladium, instead more expensive but hypoallergenic. Once the metals are combined, they go back into the furnace, and the new alloy is cast into ingots, rods, or wire. The hot alloyed gold is poured into molds, cooled, and then transferred to a rolling mill. This is where massive steel rollers flatten and shape the gold into thin sheets or long wires depending on what it will become later. The material is rolled, annealed, softened with heat, and rolled again, a process repeated multiple times to get the exact thickness and workability needed for jewelry making. At this point, both white and yellow gold look pretty similar, except for their color. But here's where they start to take very different paths. Rolling and annealing are critical steps not just for shaping, but also for refining the internal structure of the gold. As the gold is compressed and stretched, its grain structure becomes more uniform, enhancing both its strength and flexibility. Without these steps, the gold would be too brittle to work with or too soft to hold a shape. Each cycle also removes microscopic flaws that may have formed during casting, making the metal more stable and predictable in later stages. The final rolled product, whether a thin sheet or a long, slender rod, now has the ideal mechanical properties for precise cutting, bending, engraving, or forming. From here, the different alloy compositions of white and yellow gold begin to matter significantly. White gold, for example, often requires additional surface treatments to enhance its silvery appearance like rhodium plating, while yellow gold is usually polished directly to bring out its warm, golden shine. White gold may also undergo extra steps to increase hardness, since it's commonly used for settings that require greater durability, such as prongs in engagement rings. Meanwhile, yellow gold is prized for its classic luster and is often shaped into more traditional or decorative designs. Even though they began the process side by side, white and yellow gold now begin to diverge, each one destined for a very different aesthetic and functional role in the world of jewelry. Here's something surprising. White gold isn't naturally white. Even with all that nickel or palladium, white gold still has a faint yellowish hue. To get that ultra-bright silvery look, factories finish most white gold jewelry with a thin layer of rhodium, one of the rarest and most reflective metals on Earth. This is done through electroplating. The white gold piece is submerged in a solution containing rhodium salts. Then, a small electric current is applied, causing rhodium particles to bond to the surface of the jewelry. The result? That crisp, mirror-like finish that screams luxury and hides the slightly yellow undertone beneath. Yellow gold, on the other hand? No coating needed. It's polished directly to a natural shine. But here's the catch. Over time, white gold's rhodium coating wears off. That's why white gold rings sometimes need replating every few years, especially on areas that rub against the skin. Before either type of gold leaves the factory, it undergoes rigorous quality control. Each piece is tested for carat accuracy using X-ray fluorescence, structural integrity, surface finish, and polish. And in the case of white gold rhodium thickness, jewelry is also stamped with tiny hallmarks that tell you its gold content, like 14K or 18K, and sometimes the manufacturer's ID. It's not just about beauty, it's about trust. When you buy a gold piece, you want to know it's exactly what it claims to be. In many modern factories, gold is also used in lost wax casting. A wax model of the jewelry is made, dipped in ceramic, and burned out in a kiln, leaving a cavity that's filled with molten gold. This is how complex shapes like rings, pendants, and bracelets are made in bulk. From there, jewelers add diamonds, engravings, or custom details before the final polishing step. So, what's the real difference between white and yellow gold beyond just how they look? Let's start with the core. Yellow gold is made by mixing pure gold with metals like copper and silver, keeping that warm, traditional glow. White gold, on the other hand, gets its cooler, silvery tone from metals like nickel, palladium, or even platinum, giving it a completely different character. When it comes to surface treatment, yellow gold is straightforward. What you see is what you get, no coatings, just polish. White gold, however, gets a finishing touch. A thin coating of rhodium to brighten its color and enhance durability. It looks stunning, but that shine can wear off over time, which means white gold might need replating every few years to maintain its luster. Durability-wise, white gold tends to be a bit harder, thanks to those tougher alloy metals. Yellow gold is slightly softer, which makes it easier to work with for intricate designs, but also a bit more prone to scratching. There's also a difference in how each reacts with skin. Yellow gold is generally safe for everyone, but white gold, especially when alloyed with nickel, can cause allergic reactions in some people. That's why high-end jewelers often choose palladium or platinum instead. In terms of maintenance, yellow gold is pretty low effort. A quick polish brings it back to life. But white gold? It's a bit more high maintenance, especially if the rhodium starts to fade. And finally, in the world of design, yellow gold tends to show up in classic, vintage, or heirloom pieces, the kind of jewelry that feels timeless. White gold, with its cool tone and sleek finish, dominates modern styles, engagement rings, and luxury fashion pieces. At the end of the day, they both start from the same source, pure gold, but their journey through the factory and into our hands couldn't be more different. So the next time you're shopping for gold, remember, it's not just about color or carats. It's about what's inside the alloy, and the journey it took through the factory to get to you. Whether it's rolled, alloyed, or plated, every gold piece carries a story of chemistry, craftsmanship, and engineering. If you learned something new today, give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. Want us to cover rose gold, or how gold is mined and refined from raw ore? Drop your suggestions in the comments. We read everyone. Until next time, stay curious, stay shiny, and stay golden.